Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all my blessed beloveds out there in living and thriving land. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie, and I'm Rustie. Normally you hear my international Normally you hear my international podcast, which is aired all over the world in several different segments. I'm on Spreaker, I'm on VIP Radio. So it gets aired to very, very different places. And when the pandemic hit, I wanted to be able to provide more, not just verbal tools and tips and tricks, but eye contact and laughter and face-to-face communication, because right now a lot of you are not having that experience. And I think it's very important to get back to our human selves and live and thrive. It's been an incredible ride. I've been all over the world virtually, and I have been able to learn a lot about how people are spending this quality time. And some people are really demonstrating what I love about humanity, which is inspiration, motivation, reinvigorating their souls. You know, we had people who went back to start what they started many years ago. So when one of my friends started out in her career, she was a fashion designer, and then over 50 years of life, she changed careers, and now she's going back to being a fashion designer. I believe we go full circle. I believe that we have to be nomadic. That's just innately part of who we are. And I believe we come back to the beginning with fresh eyes and a newer perspective and much more appreciation when you pay attention to your journey. I am stupid excited because my friend Pam is here, and she's going to tell us all about what she does and who she is and what inspires her to be ooey gooey on the inside. Because even if you're that mean turtle that's outside my backyard all the time that I'm talking about, there's something sweet about him somewhere. That's why I keep feeding him lettuce. He'll warm up to me one day. Miss Pam, how are you, my friend?
I am doing wonderful, and I appreciate you having me on.
I'm really excited about learning more about the Camel Project and what you do. I think this is a great time to get to the root of what we should be doing, which for me is service and blessings and being a positive part of each other's interaction. I don't think we need to have much more than that. So you are of service. Who are you? What do you do? And what inspires you to be you?
Well, it was funny when you were saying it comes full circle. It certainly does. So I think along with some maturity, 20 years ago, I probably would have argued about that. But getting a little bit older, you do set your priorities different based on your life experience. And sometimes some of the life experiences we have are not so good. And the Camel Project was created about 3 years ago to really deal with aggressive learned behaviors, especially in our youth, but also in our adults. We really look at bullying because we feel that's kind of the cause. And then the rest of the things we're experiencing right now are the effects, including suicide, violence, as well as depression, and a lot of other psychological problems that we're experiencing. You know, every time I hear, I don't know what's wrong with our kids, and I'm like, do you want me to tell you? So I've gotten to this stage, my filter's broken. When people ask me questions, don't ask me unless you want my honest opinion. We
That
work
happens
on
after you're
the
35. For anybody that's younger, once you hit about 35, that
yeah,
goes away quickly.
yeah. But then you pick your battles a little more smartly. You don't take them all. You don't get the baited part either, where you're brought into things you can't win. At 20, I was ready to fight. 30, I'm like, 40, I'm like, what am I winning? And 50, I'm like, forget it. We got so much more.
I'm ready for a nap. Forget it.
Yeah, exactly. I need my nap and my my chips. Yeah. So what we really do, we really empower. We try to empower because we don't like to teach. We like to show children. We do social emotional learning programs. We can help create that peer-to-peer relationship, which we feel is the solution. We feel the children can solve the issues of behavior amongst themselves with proper guidance. I don't think any educator or PhD or a parent, I think it has to come from within the community, whether it be a school or a community youth organization, with some guidance and support. So that's what we found has been really, really working. We also found this work in workplace as well, because some of following the cognitive behavioral therapy is we look at your belief systems, your values, your limiting beliefs, which can cause, again, anger and depression, so leading to violence. So what I did was I wrote a book called Not All Camels Are in the Desert. It's based on my life story of growing up, being bullied, becoming the bully, suicides, attempts, and things like that. And I share that story with the adults as well as the youth, probably 14 and up, 13 or up. And because that's when they're really, youth are really wound up. They have 14 years of training, whether it be limiting beliefs or anger or biases or whatever they're exposed to. We get all kinds of shapes, sizes, and forms. So we try to, when you have a behavior, if you want to get rid of it, you need to replace it with another behavior. So we choose to replace those aggressive behaviors with kindness, compassion, and empathy. So you can't really teach that. You have to show it. It has to be right here. And we can't live in our head. We can't live in our heart. So we choose to live in our belly and use our gut instincts to really help children be not only challenged, but when it becomes not about them, those challenges, they will step up and they will amaze you if we as adults allow them to express themselves.
I find it really, this is actually a beautiful time to have you on, because as a parent, I grew up in, the toughest neighborhoods. I grew up scrappy, bullied, but I was never able to really become one. I think, I was scrappy. I was very defensive. Abusive childhood. So school, I had crap. Home, I had crap. So my existence for most of my life was that way. And I think that's why I do what I do. I think that's why this is my happy place. Because perspective, right? But as a parent, watching all of this nonsense and watching the kids, they're overwhelmed, and parents are overwhelmed because the economy, I don't care what anybody says, isn't that great. You still have to have two parents, and sometimes both parents work two jobs, and that's just the reality of it. I'm a single mom, so I work 2 or 3 jobs. That's our reality. And the kinds of pressures that these kids have are far different than what we had. And the kinds of messaging that they have, they're inundated with all of this. You're not enough. You're not enough. You don't wear enough makeup. You have to be gender fluid. And it's so stressful. And as a parent during a pandemic, I'm personally happy that my daughter's home, because I don't have to worry about school shootings. I don't have to worry about bullying. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And it's been so nice not to have that worry. But eventually she will have to go back out into the society. And what do you think is going to transpire from that? Do you think, I was talking to her pediatrician actually about an hour ago, and the pediatrician was telling me that the students are showing more signs of depression, more signs of isolation, more signs of connectivity, glued, and unhappiness. So when we do open up, is that going to actually be kind of pestilent? So that's like 5 questions.
Okay, let's start. No, and they're all incredibly important. Here's my fear. My fear is that at least when the children were in a school, they had some kind of structure. And not that I'm blaming any parents, because I know as an adult, I don't have any structure either. So let alone having the structure for the children. At least there was some kind of structure that they could count on. They could count on lunch. They could count on being bullied in the hall. At least they had some kind of structure. And as sad as that sounds, it was some kind of security. My concern is we don't teach math one time and say you learn math. Just like coping skills, relationship skills, these need to be practiced. And without insights from others or impacts from others or connections, we're social beings. I mean, let's face it. And our children were just on the apex of learning these skills, and then everything was shut down. And I'm not blaming anybody. It just is. And my concern, my fear is that when we open the doors, these kids are going to both be out of practice, not know what to do. And the worst thing you can do is have a scared kid without security. So again, if we could come together as a community, whether it be peer-to-peer or adults to peer, we have to be very innovative and figure out how to continue to get that contact. So I don't know how your schools are. We have unfortunately been ripped. Our bandage has been ripped off about the inequalities in our communities. We have entire school districts who they either don't have computers or they have computers, but they don't have internet access. And
You're Texas, right?
We do not have the internet access in a lot of our school districts.
No. You're Texas. What state are you in?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. See, there's this whole thing on NPR about Texas. I didn't realize Pennsylvania was still. Wow.
It's all across the country. So, this is kind of a structural thing that the adults are going to have to fix. Unfortunately, our kids are paying that price for not having that accessibility. I don't think internet and talking online is going to go away anytime soon. So the adults need to really figure it out. So we have a lot of great organizations in our area who are really stepping up and solving these issues. The city I live in is Reading, Pennsylvania. Our school district has 18,000 students. 67% are Latinos, and about that percent don't have access to the internet, or their parents don't speak English. So we have these suburban schools who are already set up for this. So the inequalities in our communities, I think, is going to be a really big setback for the learning of our children. So that's the one thing that I'm afraid of, that we're going to come out of this and our kids are going to not only be not supported, but not moving forward in their education. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and suicide rate is the second leading cause of death between students 10 and 24. That moved up to second spot, and that's really what motivated the Camel project. Because as a child, unless you've been there, and I've been there, when suicide and death is the only way you can see to stop the pain, there's a lot of things that we could have done before that. And I want the communities to step up and to really give our children that challenge to help others. And that's what we found really takes kids out of that dark place, to give them something to do, a purpose bigger than themselves, and they respond every time.
Well, I think it's perspective too. I think that we are so overwhelmed and inundated with having to be something fancy and flashy and Mercedes and glittery, and that we don't want to admit that we hurt. I think that's the first step, is to acknowledge that those feelings are real. And there's a lot of shame that goes around that, especially for kids, because their hormones are at 850%, you know, and whatever their
Just like
family.
mine now. Yeah.
Girl, I'm put a pause on that.
Yeah.
I'm in denial. But, you know, they don't really understand what's going on with their body. They have this independence that they desire so much, but they push and they pull. I have a 14-year-old daughter who's going to be 15 in a couple of weeks. And, you know, she's my mom now. She's at that age where, and I laugh about it and I can be compassionate about it, but not a lot of parents are like that. A lot of parents are, you know, harder about those things. And I think it makes it even more confusing for kids to step out and say, hey, I'm not feeling good on the inside. What tips and tricks do you offer to allow a child to have that freedom to say that?
Well, and I think the first step is always to have a good communication with your children. And everybody says I have a good communications. No, make it better, make it stronger. Um, Also, make sure that they have support systems other than you. I know that seems counterintuitive, but there has to be some other adults that you can surround them with that are supportive. I have a friend who has a daughter, and she says, I have 27 moms. And, you know, she's ecstatic. And she said to her mother, I know if something ever would happen to you, I have 26 other moms to fall back on. So really creating your tribe, or whatever you want to call it, community, really creating that network that they are secure. Not that they don't have consequences. That was the other one of the other things. Kids need consequences. So if you have an action that causes something and there's no negative, they'll never learn. And I know that's probably, I don't have children, I have cats. I can't even conceive of being responsible for a kid, because you have to feed them first of all, and totally not within my wheelhouse. So I have that like third non-judgmental perspective of this. I got a lot of kids I love, but none of them are mine. So, well, they're all actually mine, but I have a school of 600 students too. But anyways, that's a whole other story. But, you know, they have to have that security. And I think acknowledging that there's more than just one parent or two parent, until you have 27, you know, parents around the kid, that might be enough. But also that, you know, just that balance of responsibility versus reward, or acknowledgement of what they're doing. And again, I don't suggest you get every kid a puppy, but something that they can be responsible for, and something that they're in charge of. Hopefully nothing alive to start with, but you know, after that you can gauge that. But giving them that responsibility, the consequences. And the other thing I suggest to parents too is that if you're regularly in a fight with your child about the same thing, you're the adult, you need to change the communications. If you're having a fight every night about your 10-year-old boy who doesn't want to take a bath, why don't you just tell him not to? You know, eventually people are going to say, dude, you need a bath, and it won't be coming from you. So, but if there's an argument every night, you have to change the conversation.
I think for some groups of individuals, that's harder said than done. And they're, you know, the hard part about this pandemic are the kids that need the safety of school, because their home life isn't the greatest, isn't being met. So that's, you know, that's another hurdle we have to face. I advocate and fight every single day to end poverty in our country, because if we do, I really genuinely believe domestic violence, child abuse, and addictions would greatly reduce. I don't think it'll completely disappear. That's my magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that that's a huge part of what some of these kids have to hurdle through, on top of school, on top of bullying, on top of, and growing up. I mean, growing up's not easy. It's not easy at all. Um, I would really love to learn a little bit more about how you are accessing, because you have a school, so you're not really movable, are you? Do you get to go on tour to teach?
Well, absolutely. I'm starting my virtual speaking. I've been a speaker for about 20 years now. So we go out and we can train the trainers, we can talk to the parents, we can show signs of symptoms. The top three groups of kids who are bullied are because of race, LBGT, as well as kids with disabilities. So what our answer to that is education. So most of our bullying we find is fear-based. And how do you get rid of fear? You educate. So there's a couple programs. I can go out and speak to adults and teachers. We do a lot of teachers and service days. Unfortunately, one hour program for a credit is not going to make a whole school change. It's a whole school, whole student program that we offer, and we offer the support. So I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. We started the Camel project about 3 years ago because of the Parkland shooting. I can't take any mass shootings anymore, and they're blaming the shooter instead of really drilling down as to this. You know, that's a symptom. We got to find the cause. You know, the kid isn't evil. There was signs and symptoms that the adults missed. The Secret Service just published a study in 2019. 100% of the last 41 school shooters talked to somebody about the event at least a month prior to it, and 100% of those kids were bullied. So we as an adult have to change the discussion, and we have to start recognizing these signs and symptoms. And that's really my crusade. So once the school districts either say, well, we have bullying under control, we don't have bullying here, or, oh yeah, we're working on that. Once they decide that they need some kind of program other than the curriculum for education, these social and coping skills programs, I feel, need to be part of the curriculum, but you know, who am I? But we can thread this into their course study. We can have a outside club. It's called YAM. It's Youth Ambassadors Models, which helps the kids write their own codes of conduct, and then they're in charge of their peers to make their peers follow those codes of conduct. If it needs to be revamped, then they need to call a committee meeting, and they need to make it happen. So once you put the kids in charge of things, they're going to be harder on their peers than any adult will ever be. And if you put them and you task them with that and you challenge them to do that, they will absolutely step up to get it done.
I love it. I love that it's modular too. And I love the fact that you're having peers advocate for their group, because, you know, high schoolers can tend to be a little bit more challenging when it comes to adults. So maybe your best friend can be like, hey, dude, chill, you know, relax.
Yeah.
Do they get, do they get to watch movies, documentaries? You know, what's kind of like the fun aspect of this project aside from watching them have a better perspective?
So what we do, we have different modalities. We also encourage story time, skits, plays, videos. They get to write the agenda for this time. It's their agenda, and they're going to find out how difficult it is to work within a team. And you know, there's a layer upon layer upon layer of learning in this model, because you have to learn team skills. You need to be decision-making skills. You need to be accountable for consequences of the different things. You are going to be met with challenges from other peers, which is not an adult. So they can't blame the adults, or they can't hide because they are out on the front line. And it's almost, it could be a club after school, it could be part of the detention period, but in Pennsylvania, we have 67 counties. In our one single county, we have 18 public school districts. So in our state of Pennsylvania, we have over 500 schools, which each are independent. There's no standardization. I can't even get most of them to admit there's bullying in their schools. So we're actually working with the Department of Education and the Federal Department of Education as well, to try to get the buy-in, and for the state and local governments and the federal government to start paying for this and making it a mandate. So I have a little work there to do, but I think the more we get it out, the more statistics, the more evidence base we can get. We're not nearly as big as I want to be, but we will be taking over the world sometime shortly. Believe me,
Yes.
this is a passion.
My kind of woman. She's ready to grab life by its huevos.
And we need each other. So, we need to support, support each other. Your movement, my movement, and together we're going to move something. I mean, something's going to get out the way because if
that hot flash is coming, something's getting out of the way.
Something's got to go.
Something's got to go. So I am actually on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and one of the things that I found was, I used to teach, and I really got out of teaching in traditional schools because of the policy holders and the politics and the sue happy parents. It's just gotten ridiculous. It's gotten very Jerry Springer in my opinion. But I would love to see how we could stretch your imagination and see how far we could really take this, because honestly, doing what I do prospectively, I could see this in prisons. I can see this in group homes. I was in foster care. I've been down the path, the fun path. And I can see this in facilities that would be enriched by enriching their communities to rise up to a new level of thinking and understanding and compassion and consideration. YMCA is one that I would think would really eat this up, a Boys and Girls Club. So there's just a myriad of places that I see this to fit. I mean, do you need volunteers to help reach out to people? What is it that you need from the Living and Thriving posse?
So we need to get the word out that there is a program. It's based on somebody's experiential learning. This is based on what I needed as a child and didn't get. I committed a felony in 9th grade because of frustration. One of the signs I showed, I went to 300 pounds and I'm 5 foot tall. And nobody said, what's going on with this kid? They decided and labeled me fat and lazy. And so this is my response to that, this happened and it needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, it's still happening. So we do need volunteers. We have a training for volunteers to become certified, to go into these places. There is only one of me. I have visited the prisons in this area. They don't seem willing to invest. And I said, well, this is a jail and you're releasing these people into my community. I'm not happy with how you're releasing these people. I spoke to a couple of the children's home in this area as well, very receptive. I spoke to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. This could be a program the Camel can. What we found and doing my research is these are great programs, but if there's not an entity over watching and keeping these folks accountable, so they go away, or the leadership changes, or this is thrown out because a new leader has to come in and prove it their work. So the Camel Project wants to be that support system that we will be back, and you will have to pay something for this program. And if you don't follow our programs, we will not be in your facility. So I found the worst thing that can happen if the whole facility is not on board. I'm not starting a program and having it end within 2 months. Our kids are so used to us doing that. So unless I have a buy-in and for a year commitment, we're not coming. Not doing it to the kids.
And I love how you point that out, because these kids, they get fizzled out on so many aspects of their life. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm a busy mom, and I fizzle out on my kid on occasion. And finding that balance as a parent and as an educator, it's not easy because life happens. It really truly happens, and it's not intentional for most of us, but things do fizzle. And I like how you hold them accountable to at least 12 months of commitment.
I spoke to the YMCA and I said, here's if you want to move forward, we will give you 1 year proposal with the 2nd year option. And she says, a year? I'm like, yeah, if you don't want a year, I don't want a year. I'm not doing it to the kids. The kids have enough disappointment to start a program that I know they're going to like because they're engaged, you know. It's not like we go in and say, oh, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your career? It's like, you know, these kids can't even see 5 minutes. Okay, let's back up a little bit and help them discover what their passion is in a very safe, non-judgmental environment. And she literally fell off her chair. And I'm like, you know, I'm not your traditional nonprofit executive director. So she wasn't used to that.
It takes a lot of mavericks to get things shaken and moving, and I hope that when people see this video, they are able to spread the word about the Camel Project and reach out to you and, you know, donate funds so that you can hit one of the hardest areas and do it for free, so to speak. I love.
Or if they want to bring the program into their community or their school or their after-school program, we'd be happy to sit down and train them and take them through the program that they can deliver itself. I think it really needs to go through the teachers, and I know the teachers are stressed. They don't need any more stuff, so we try to use it turnkey. We try to not totally.
I think we lost you. Well, welcome to COVID-19, where people freeze on the screen. I don't know if that was you or if that was me, but we had a COVID-19 goblin.
There you go. And
so we'll go back a little bit. Hopefully the recording is still recording. Otherwise, we'll just have to do it again because I want your message out there clean. What is your website, and how do you want people to contact you? I think that's really a big message right now.
Sure. Our website is thecamelproject.org. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. You can send us an email. It's Pam Gockley at the Camel Project, or use the form. We have different selections. So if you're interested in talking about how to bring this program to your community, it just works better when somebody within the community delivers it. Now we'll come in for backup. We'll come in to do the introduction. I can come in and do my 30-40 minute assembly to really set the stage for what the program is about. I do and have been known to just show up at a meeting just to make sure everybody's on their toes. And I think we can't offer and train people how to support if we're not supporting. So if we're not a community organization that involves the community, it's not going to work because we won't have that relationship with that community. I've even done some speaking at some churches as well. This is not religious based, but anywhere that there's a community that needs that support, that extra step, that extra layer of not only security, but in order to thrive, we need to be goal oriented, we need to be forward thinking, and we need to be able to go there as a group and as a support system for everybody.
Well, I'm very excited to see how you're going to grow, and I'm hoping that the listeners out there or the viewers, it's kind of strange because I'm not used to this video. It's been fun. But
yeah, I know.
Whoever's watching, observing, if you want to reach out to Pam, she could really use the messaging to be sent out in a really productive, constructive way. I have a feeling that the next round of schooling for the kids, whenever that may be, is going to be a lot of transition, and I'm not confident that our school districts can really empathize with that transition. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping they're spending time to understand that it's going to be hard for the kids to get back on track. But we'll see.
And we do offer one-on-one for parents who are struggling as well. If you want to do a 30-minute Zoom, we're again not we do CBT training. We're non-judgmental, and we don't you're broken. We don't want to fix you. We have that non-connected third eye to give you some feedback. So we also, like I said, we talk one-on-one. I talk one-on-one with children as well. Sometimes they need just to talk to somebody.
I agree with that too.
Awesome. Yeah.
So the Camel Project, this is Pam. I am grateful for you and your service, and I'm hoping that from this video, you will have a little bit of a lapel shaking time, so to speak.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie, and I'm Rustie, and that was Pam from the Camel Project. And what a cool time to have these conversations. You know, kids are going to be concerned. Kids are going to be off track when they go back to school. Teachers are going to be frustrated because they have to renegotiate all of the skills that used to be an everyday thing. And I think the Camel Project can really help with what you're doing. Know that there's so many things that we've gotten away from this video series. A lot of it is passion, getting back to basics. Meditation is good, especially in this particular case. Listening and perspective. You know, these kids are already stressed out. It's going to be tough getting them back on track, but I know that we can do it if we do it together and as a team. And the Camel Project is an excellent way to guide you and help you as a resource. So off to my next adventure. Know that I love you. Know that you're beautiful. Please do something kind for yourself and do something really nice for somebody else. Until next time.